really easy to pause that way. Better than coming up with a joke or something like that on the fly. So hello everyone, I'm Austin Peterson. I'm one of your presidential candidates, and I'm going to be speaking. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Fighting to take over government so I can leave you all alone. I'm going to be introducing someone very special to me and very special to you all, one of your homegrown libertarians, Mr. Tony Stiles, my campaign manager, and I'm very excited to do that today because if Tony wasn't doing what he's doing right now, I wouldn't be here today. We probably would have had to shut this baby down a couple of months ago. And a lot of people ask, why did I run for president? Well, you know, if Tony's name spelled backwards is why not? And it was about 6 weeks to 2 months ago that I was sitting in the campaign headquarters that we had rented out, and I had only a treasurer at the time, and you know, an army of volunteers, but no capacity to really engage this broad group of people that we had. And I've been doing well in online polls, and I have a large social media following, but being able to translate that into real world activism requires someone who has real entrepreneurial skills, someone who understands the game that's played, someone who knows how to get people out, how to manage effectively, and Tony is that man. And at the time, I didn't know that Tony was going to take over because it was just me and my treasurer, and we were trying to figure out how to get our fundraising apparatus in gear. We were raising money, but we didn't know how to allocate the funds properly, and we had a big national tour coming up that we were a little bit scattered about. And at the time, Tony had just come into town, and he was from saving little girls in Cambodia from human trafficking. Thank you for that, Tony. And he had stopped in very briefly to the campaign headquarters just to see what we were all about. And he stayed with us for a couple of days and kind of observed. And you know, I'd get up in the morning and get online and do my activism and organizing and my live streams and what have you. And one morning that Tony was there, he was only going to be there for a few days before he headed back to Cambodia. And I got a letter that was sitting on my computer, and my heart sank because I assumed this was like a Dear John letter. Like, this was going to be, Austin, you suck, you're an idiot, this is not going anywhere, and I'm leaving. And it turns out that Tony had written in there, he said, Austin, I think with a few tweaks to this campaign, a little bit more professionalization of this campaign, that we could really win this nomination. And so I sat down with all the campaign staffers, and Tony's sitting across from me, and I said, hey, ladies and gentlemen, meet your new campaign manager, Tony Stiles. And the revolution continued. And it's because of Tony that we have become one of the front runners in this campaign, that we were able to make this John Stossel Forum happen. We made history together, and it's thanks to Mr. Tony Stiles. So please give him a big applause for that, for helping us make history. Tony is a good man, he's a good friend of mine, and he's been fighting very hard to make this happen. And let me tell you what, keeping all these plates spinning for a national presidential campaign is not easy. But the good news is that we are the only solvent campaign that is totally debt-free, thanks to Mr. Tony Stiles. You know, we've run a tough campaign. We've been punching up. We're very much the underdogs, we see ourselves. We're going up against a very popular incumbent, and we have no illusions about the challenges that we have to face. But it's because of this man and because of the work of people like Tony that this Libertarian Party will succeed. And I'll look forward to telling you a lot more about myself when I give my talk after Mr. Tony Stiles. But I want you to meet one of the hardest working men in libertarianism, my friend, my campaign manager, a great man, and a hardcore freedom fighter, Mr. Tony Stiles.
This thing taped to this? Is it?
Kinda.
Yeah, all right.
Do you want the mic off?
No, it's all right. I can.
It just spins. You can spin
It's fine. I'm good. I can rock star this like David Lee Roth. We got this.
I'm kind of doing all day.
I'm Tony Stiles. I'm an Omaha native, and I'm proud to be from Nebraska. This is home. It always has been home. It always will be home. Even though my family has moved on, they all went down to Phoenix recently. And Omaha is a special place to me. It's where I was born and raised. It's one of those places that no matter where you go or what you're doing, it's constant. And I can't say that about a lot of cities. This is a city that's like a rock, and we don't tell people about it for a very good reason, because we don't want more people showing up. we kind of keep it a secret, and I like that about Omaha too. My dad started a company back when he was right around my age, mid-30s, called Cornhusker Insulation, aptly named, here in Nebraska. And when he passed away, he left that business in the middle of a sale. I was out in Romania at that time. I was doing anti-human trafficking work and some missionary work with Habitat and a couple Baptist churches at that time. It was early 2000s. And I couldn't get a hold of my family, couldn't figure out what was going on. I eventually got a call from my sister, and she said, "You need to come home immediately, Dad's going to go real soon." So I came back, and he left that business, like I said, in the middle of a sale. And I had to kind of man up at the young age of, I guess it was 22 at the time, and carry that through and sell it. We sold it for a good chunk of change, and went on and started my own business from there. And it snowballed into 2 businesses, which snowballed into 3, into 4, and eventually, as of last year, at age 34, I had started 24 successful companies, and I retired. During that time, I was here on the radio in Omaha about 4 years ago. I had my own radio show, Tony Stiles Show. I had done that for about a year in Omaha, maybe 9 months, and they called me up and they said, "We'd like to put you on national." So I went on national radio, and it was about a year after that. I was on about 150 stations around the country. I was speaking to over 1 million people whenever I put my face in front of a microphone, which is good because nobody wants to see my face. It's better with the mic. And my contract came up just about 7 months ago, and I had the offer to renew, and it was very enticing. But I had my friends from Romania telling me, "You need to come out to Cambodia." They kept telling me that. "You need to come out to Cambodia, there's things going on, you need to come out to Cambodia." And I kept telling them, "The timing's not right, the timing's not right, the timing's not right." And finally, the timing was absolutely right. So I stopped doing radio, stopped everything that I was doing, and moved off, planned things and moved off to Cambodia for a little while. We got kicked out of Cambodia. Well, we did some things. We saved a lot of young people, and I'll tell you that story in a little while. But we got kicked out of Cambodia because, well, we were asked not to come back after we left. Is what ended up happening. But we'll still go back. But we were asked, I'm an anarchist. That's just what I am. Well, we'll end up going back to Cambodia. But once I was out there, we rescued some kids, and things went kind of funny. I came back, and we got word that we weren't allowed to come back to Cambodia about a month ago. They told us that, but we're still planning on going back, and I'll get into that story in a little bit. During that time that I was back, Austin filled in that blank spot. I came and stayed with him because my house here in Omaha was being rented. Observed what he was doing and decided that I was going to be his. Oh, he decided I was going to be his campaign manager. That's just how he operates. He's very good at what's the word for it? Being an ass. He's one of my best friends in the world, and I really love the guy. He is on top of his game. He has a fine-tuned race car right now, and I really hope he gets the nomination because he's going to make libertarianism and everybody that's libertarian very proud if he does. It's going to be better than Gary Johnson. I love Gary. He's a personal friend, but he's not the man for the job. He's a Republican that smokes weed. That's Gary Johnson. John McAfee, he's also a good guy, friend of mine. He is not electable. And then there's Austin, who is articulate, not bad looking. Yeah. He knows libertarianism very well. He has, this is off track, I shouldn't be campaigning for him, but he has libertarianism down. He has been a libertarian longer than McAfee and Johnson combined. And that's pretty impressive. He's the right man for the job. But outside of that, let's get back to what I'm here to talk about, and that's the human trafficking thing. As I said, I started off in Romania. In Romania, there was a huge problem with human trafficking, sex trafficking in particular. What happens there, and it's different in all different places around the world. In Romania in particular, what was going on there was they were advertising in the local papers, "Come and work out of town, we're looking for young girls who are professional." you know, which seems very innocent. And they'd show up and they would tell them, you have a job waiting for you, come out to Italy, come out to Spain, come out to England. And these girls would fall for it and they'd end up moving out there and be immediately sold into prostitution. So it was my job inside that to kind of infiltrate it. And by infiltrate, it means being kind of a slime ball, playing that role, rather. What I would do is I would call these places and get in with them, talk to people that were in charge, and eventually get inside and find out what exactly was going on, who the main players were. And then from there, because these third world countries, the governments are often involved with them, you can't call the police, and I wouldn't anyways, I'm an anarchist. But yeah, even if you did, they weren't going to do anything. So you had to tear apart these little cartels, and some of them large cartels, with the group that you had. And it gets into dirty business, a lot of scars in my body, a lot of scars in my soul, a lot of scars in my mind from a lot of things that happened in Romania while I was there. And continuing on into Cambodia, outside of Romania, recently when I came back to doing the anti-human trafficking work. The most recent story, it's hard for me to talk about it. I kind of tear up if I don't joke around about it, because it's a tough one to tell. What happened there was we showed up. First of all, showing up, there's a gentle balance there that has to go on. You have to be very sure of what you're doing. In Cambodia, what we had done with my organization is they had identified a fake orphanage. And identified what they did was we have people in India that are computer hackers, and they find out through keywords and all that kind of stuff, very NSA-like, very illegal in the United States, but very worthwhile for the cause that we're all about. What they did was they identified a fake orphanage in Cambodia, and me and my group went out to rescue the kids from that fake orphanage. Now, a fake orphanage, what that is an orphanage that is set up to look like it's an orphanage, but what they're doing is they're actually selling children to pedophiles, often by the hour, by the day, by the week. Sometimes they just sell them straight out, and the kids never heard from again, usually killed. We identified this fake orphanage. We went there, northern parts of Cambodia, in places I can't even pronounce. Went out there, and we set up camp about a mile down the road. And it was my job to go in and play the slime ball. Do you know what the number one question is asked in any brothel or any fake orphanage around the world? Anybody? It's how young is your youngest? That's a hard thing to think about. How young is your youngest? Because that's what they're looking for. They're looking for the youngest. In Cambodia, when I walked in there, that was the first thing I said. How young is your youngest? And they brought me these young boys that were about 4 years old. Young girls that were, 3, 4, 5 years old. The average age for a sex slave right now, if you would take the average across the world, is about 12. In Cambodia, it's younger than that. It's about 8. While I was there, I identified some of the kids that were the youngest, and then also some of the kids that were old enough to know what was going on. This is how they get into these fake orphanages. This is how they get the kids. What happens is, in a place like Cambodia, these cartels can walk in to a bank and say, we want to buy out this person's mortgage, or this person's car loan, or whatever loan they may have. They buy it out, and they show up that person's property, and they say, we now own your loan. You can either give us your kids, or you have to leave. And most times, they'll just give up their kids, or at least one of them. It's a very Sophie's Choice type of situation, literally. And so that's how they get a lot of the kids. And once they have the kids, they tell them things like, your parents gave you to us because they don't want you, they don't care about you. So it kills the kid's soul. They don't want to escape because they have no place to go. What are they going to do? They're trapped. So when they get into these fake orphanages, the best hope that they have is after being raped repeatedly is hopefully find somebody that wants to take them and maybe rape them less. That's the best prospect for them. But then there's my group. We show up. While we were there, like I said, I identified the younger ones and the ones that knew what was going on, the ones that realized they were being lied to, but there was nothing they could do about it. Right around 12, 13 years old. Went in there and bought 10 kids, 10 boys. And the price on them was, depending on their age, and I'll get into that in a second, depending on their age, was between $5,000 and $15,000 each. We had raised that money, and we bought those 10 kids. Took them out of that orphanage, down the road to where our camp was, and we informed them that I'm not actually a bad guy, that we're planning on going back in the middle of the night and taking out more kids, some of your friends. So we'd like you to come with us. Out of these 10 kids, there were 8 of them that were willing to go back. God bless them. That had to be a hard thing for them to do. 2 of them, they did not want to go anywhere near the place ever again, which is completely understandable. So we went back in the middle of the night, and we were able to take out 50 more. So we left with 60 kids from that fake orphanage. There were still some left there, and there's more groups going back to try to do the same thing, but they're very wary now that we've done that. But 60 kids is a good win. Just a couple weeks ago, my group, without me, I helped orchestrate a little bit of it, but in Kuwait, they took out 160 kids that were from Uganda out of Kuwait. This is an epidemic. The human trafficking situation is the second largest criminal activity in the United States. Number 1 being drugs, and since I'm a libertarian, that's not even a thing. So it's really the number 1 issue. It should be to us as libertarians. $32.5 billion last year was made in human trafficking. That's more than Nike, Starbucks, and Google combined.
In the United States?
In the United States. That's a lot of money. It's something that I hold dear to me, and I'm not here to ask you, please donate and help the kids and all that kind of stuff. But I'm here to make you aware of a situation that's out there that a lot of people don't talk about. You don't hear about it on the news. And the reason you don't hear about it is because it doesn't sell commercials. That's the honest truth. It's hard to sell a commercial when you're talking about children being raped. Everybody will turn the channel. Nobody wants to hear that. So it's something that I'm doing now, and it's something that I'm going to continue doing. It's something that I'm going to go back to as soon as this campaign is over, which hopefully goes all the way, 5 years from now, and we get reelected and all that good stuff. That'd be an ideal situation. I'd like that because I can see a lot of good things happening with me being part of the campaign. And just to let you know, since I'm in Omaha, I'm going to tell you straight out. Austin once asked me if I wanted to run as his VP, and I have declined. That's not something that I'm interested in. It's a very kind offer. But there's better people out there than me that should be on the ticket. And I'm better at the organizing things. I'm better at the business side of things, just like I am inside the human trafficking realm with dealing with people and dealing with situations rather than being the face to take care of things, which is something that Austin is very good at. So just to wind things down and take questions in a little bit, I want you to know that when it comes to human trafficking, there's issues not just across the world, but right here in Omaha. And there are groups here in Omaha that operate, that are very reputable. I can name a couple that I have on a list on my phone that are great people that can help out. But in Omaha alone, we are, I think it is give me a second, it's somewhere between 70th, it's somewhere between 60th and 70th, somewhere between there, largest human trafficked cities in the United States. And it's because we have I-80 run straight through us. It's easy to pick up somebody and just take off. And you can see it on the news, almost twice a week you see somebody go missing. How often do you see that person recovered? Think about that. Do you ever see it? That's what's going on. Let me get into pricing of people before I take questions. Pricing of people. This is what they're looking for when they're looking to buy somebody. Younger the better. That's the higher prices go that way. Females over males takes precedent. But then there's a gap in between there where right between 18 and 25, a female is worth the most money. And the reason for that is because they've been used and their spirit's been broken. So they're not going to run off. So they sell for the most money. It's something that really hits home with me because I've met, obviously I've met girls that have been in that situation, and I've helped them out, and they're broken. They'll never be repaired. They've really been lost at that point.
What do they do with the rest of their lives once you get them out of that situation?
All right, what happens is, once we get them out of that situation, in Cambodia, for example, I'll talk about Cambodia, and I'll talk about Romania, I'll talk about Bulgaria.
You talk about the United States.
In the United States, all right. In the United States, what happens is, it depends on their age. If they're younger people, hopefully they can get returned to their families. If they can't be returned to their families because their families are gone, they're an orphan, whatever it may be, they generally, because we're in the United States, they go into the system. And then, they either spiral and get lost inside that, or they thrive. Very few thrive. But in a place like Cambodia, when we took them out, we took them directly from there to a safe house, and that safe house, which is all voluntary. These people operate off of donations. We took them from that orphanage to a safe house, and that safe house puts them in school. They give them clothes, and the younger they are, the more likely they are to actually have a normal life.
Is there, once these loans are bought off and people give up their children, if you're able to recover them and get them back to their parents, do those people try and take that kid back?
Most of the time, yeah. I've seen very few cases where we can actually identify who the parents are, especially when it's in Southeast Asia, because in Southeast Asia there's a ton of people and very few records of anybody where they live. So
no, I'm not saying getting them. If you are able to get the child back to the parents, the people that are running, say the fake orphanage, do they try and come back to take that kid again?
There's that very real problem, and that is it's one of the reasons that we try not to it sounds bad. We try not to look too hard for these people, for their parents, because obviously if they're willing to save their house over their kid, it's not really somebody that I would prefer them to be with.
Yeah.
But we do look, and it's a very it's real that does happen, that they come back. These are cartels. A lot of the same people that run drug cartels run in human trafficking cartels also. They're very dangerous people. That's why stories like this, sure, will probably make it to the internet and things like that, but as far as being in mainstream, me sitting and actually telling a story and giving the exact town names and things like that would not be something I'd want to do, because they'd come in there. Yeah. Right back here. Yeah, there is definitely a tie. Yeah, that's something that I've thought of, because I have a very operational mindset, and I'm business savvy. So I think about things like, if drug prohibition is over, then these people need to make up their money somewhere. So they'll probably go to that business that's just behind it, which is human trafficking. So it probably would bring that upwards. So you know, it's something that's going to have to be dealt with. I like the way that my group deals with it because we're not government funded. We don't work with the government. We don't want to have anything to do with them. We just want to protect the kids. That leads me into something else that I should talk about. What happens is when we're dealing with this, we keep the government out of it as much as possible because the government doesn't have the kids really in mind. They have numbers in mind. So when the police go into rescue rather than us going into rescue, they're waiting and standing back and waiting to identify all the bad guys and then infiltrate and arrest people so they can have a good arrest number and get those numbers up and say, we arrested this many people and we collected this much money and we broke apart this. But isn't it more important, instead of waiting all that time, to save the kids instead? You know, those kids, during that time they're collecting these names and plotting an arrest, you know, months, years passed, and hundreds of thousands of rape incidents happen. So, anybody else?
The victims of sex trafficking here in America, are they predominantly Americans or from other countries?
It's a bit of a wash. A lot of them come over here. They're brought over here illegally. A lot of Russian girls, a lot of Bulgarian girls, a lot of Albanians. That's the majority of it. Pretty much any strip club on the East Coast, what happened, or on the West Coast for that matter, very few make it from overseas and get their way to the middle of America where we are. But what happens is a lot of these strip clubs, which are also, you know, I mean, they can be brothels if you go to some of them. It's pretty obvious. They'll tell you straight out. They'll make a proposition to you. But once the police know or are informed that this strip club is also operating with illegal people, that strip club then, because they're connected with all the other strip clubs and they're all tied into this cartel, they'll call up and say, we're getting infiltrated pretty soon, we need to trade girls. So they'll just call another strip club and they'll just change girls. And then they're hot off the trail. Yeah, it's a tough one to battle. It's been very hard for me. It's, like I said, there's scars in my soul, and let me tell you this part. This is how I'm going to conclude, and it's a very sad conclusion, unfortunately. As much as I have rescued people, I've seen more people damaged than I have rescued, and that's the truth for anybody that's doing the anti-human trafficking. Anybody that's in that type of organization. In Cambodia was the biggest shock that I ever had, and that was in back of that fake orphanage. There's a giant pit in the back they light on fire full of dead bodies once a week. That's the reality that we live in. You know, we have it pretty good in America here. There are issues with human trafficking, but across the world, it's definitely a much larger issue than it is right here. But it does play in exactly to here as well, because if you can stop things from happening here, it stops a lot of the money from trading hands. If we can stop people from getting in and being forced into prostitution in the United States, which is, you know, let's face it, we're a rich country. It doesn't seem so on paper, but people still have money and they spend it on hookers and all kinds of things. But if we can stop things outside the country, if we can stop things inside the country, it stops a lot of the money changing hands, and that definitely puts a dent in it. So I've always been taught when you're done with things to leave something to think about. Something to think about for everybody. And, you know, it's been a very depressing topic, hasn't it? Something to think about. Something to think about is watching. Look around. We don't live in the 50s anymore. I never have. But from what I understand, it was a great time, and there is very low risk of your kid being outside and playing on the street, riding their bikes. But right now, we have a culture where one in 1,000 is what they say now will possibly be put into a situation where they could be kidnapped. Outside of that, 1 in 100 will be, no, hold on, 1 in 20 will be molested. And out of that 1 in 20, what is it, give me a second. Out of that 1 in 20, there is a 50% chance it'll be a relative. So keep your eyes open. It's important. You know, I can't think of anything more precious than human life. And I've seen my share of some bad things at this point. And I'm happy to say that I live in a place like America where this is a little bit less of a risk, but it's still something that everybody needs to watch out for. So I'm going to introduce somebody that is much better at speaking than I am. I'm much better at the radio type thing, where I get on and I say, hey, what is up, Mohawk Nation? You are listening to the King of Accountability, and all that kind of stuff. I'm much better at that than I am standing up and talking about human trafficking, because it's a hard thing to talk about. I don't think anybody can stand up and give an entertaining talk about human trafficking. It's more like this is how it is, people, and it's very depressing. I'm going to introduce, like I said, I'm going to introduce somebody that's very special to me. He is